We're here to have another conversation with a local hometown hero, and I'm real excited to be talking to a friend of mine, Charlie Craig Haynes. How you doing today, Mr. Haynes?
Just fine.
Good. We actually met on the Triad Flight of Honor, and I think you would agree with me that since that time we've become pretty good friends.
Right.
We have. He's got an incredible story that I think it's real important for our community to know about. First of all, let's talk a little bit about your history. You grew up in what community?
Smith Grove.
Smith Grove.
Smith Grove community.
That's right. And what year were you born?
1924.
1924. So that means you were about 17 years old when World War II began.
Well.
Do you remember where you were when you found out that the world was at war?
Well, not really. Not really.
Now, you made the decision to join the United States Army Air Corps.
I was drafted.
You were drafted?
Yeah.
Do you remember getting the letter?
Yeah.
What was it like reading in the mailbox that you were being drafted?
Well, I knew I was a goner.
Was it a scary time?
No. Everybody, I'd seen a lot of people go before me, and I figured I wasn't no better to go than they were. So
where did you go to basic training at?
Atlantic City, New Jersey.
Was that your first trip to Atlantic City?
Yeah.
What was it like for a country boy from Davie County to find themselves in Atlantic City?
It was the coldest place I'd ever been. We were on the Army took over the hotels up there, and that's where we stayed. That was the only good part about it. We stayed in a hotel, and was right on the boardwalk, and all you could hear was the ocean roar, you know. And the first mail I got was up there, and they told me how much they missed me. I'd read a while and swallow the knot in my throat, read a little bit more, and I thought, you think you miss me, you don't have no idea I miss being at home. So
Now, was this from mom and dad, or was this from a girlfriend?
No, it was a letter from home.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So you spent your time at basic training. I want to jump forward to the time that you found yourself in San Francisco.
Yeah.
How much time did you spend in San Francisco?
We left up there at Atlantic City, New Jersey. I had my fortune told, and they told me I'd get closer home. Well, we was going to leave them up there, and but we got on a troop train, and it didn't stop till it got to California, and so that was I think it's in the February or March, and we was in California till 28th day of November.
What year was that?
That was 43.
43.
And that's when we shipped out to go overseas.
So when you shipped out to go overseas meaning the South Pacific, you left on what ship?
Cape San Juan.
Now, I already know the story. The USS Cape San Juan has a very unique history in World War II American history. You left San Francisco, you went underneath the bridge, you're out at sea. Tell us about your experience on that ship.
Well, we left San Francisco, and they said we were to be in a convoy. Well, we sailed 2 or 3 days, no convoy. And somebody then said that the ship was too fast for a convoy. And I asked some of them, I said, look to me like it's got a throttle on it that you can slow down, you know. So anyway, we went, kept going by ourselves, just one lone ship. And we left the States October the 28th. And it was 14 days out from San Francisco. And this Japanese submarine threw a torpedo and hit the ship about 5:30 one morning.
So 5:30. Do you remember the date?
Yeah, November the 11th.
November the 11th.
Armistice Day.
On Armistice Day at 5:30 in the morning, your ship was hit by a Japanese torpedo. What were you doing? I'm assuming 5:30 in the morning you were probably asleep.
I was asleep up on deck.
Okay, now why were you on deck asleep and not in
Well, a lot of times it was hot downstairs.
Mm-hmm.
We just slept up there on deck.
So I guess it's probably a silly question to ask. When the torpedo hit, were you awakened immediately?
It woke me.
Did it scare you?
No, not really. Not really. At that age, you didn't realize just how much danger you was in before that goes.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew it wasn't good. When it happened, we'd had abandoned ship drills, and when this happened, the captain, he gave the order to abandon ship, and he said, "And men, this ain't no drill." But that was the first time it had really dawned on me that we were in a war.
Mm-hmm.
But when that happened, I realized right quick that we were in a war, and they meant business.
So when the torpedo hit, I'm assuming there's a portion of the ship that's on fire, smoking. Do you recall that?
It caught on fire, and there was explosions on it too. But there was diesel all in the water, and you couldn't tell one from the other out there. You know, there was a colored troop on there, and when you got that diesel fuel on, you couldn't tell who was who. You know,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a bad situation for that goes, that diesel fuel in the water.
So from 5:30 when the torpedo hit, how quickly did you find yourself off the ship?
Pretty quick. I'd say 10 minutes.
So did you dive into the water?
No.
Okay, tell us what you did. I'm assuming a life jacket.
Yeah, we had a life jacket on. We kept that with us all the time, and I went down a rope ladder, and the water was so rough, the old ship, it was doing this back and forth. One time you'd be on the rope ladder, and you'd in the water. Next time he'd go back and pull you up out of the water. So you'd go down a little further, and when you go down to the end of the ladder, that's when we decided it's time to get off and turn loose of the rope ladder. And we managed to get on a life raft. It was about a 14-man raft, and I think there's about 20 some of us on it before they go.
So there's no sight of land.
No.
Can you? It's 2012, and this has been many years ago. But during a typical day in your life, do you think back very often about that morning, leaving the comforts and the safety of a ship, and putting yourself in a smaller life raft than is capable of holding the 20 some odd men that were in it? Do you find yourself going there even today?
I do. Thinking about the ones that especially my outfit, and after it was over with, the reunions we had and all that. That was the main topic when we went to reunions, telling stories about it. You know.
Mm-hmm. Now, what were you in the water for? A couple hours? How long did you find yourself being?
I went. It was about 5:30 that morning. It was all day and all night, and the next day about 4 o'clock. And the water, it was the roughest it had been from the time we left the States. And it would be.
I want to repeat what you just said. You went in the water at 5:30. You were there not 24 hours, but 24 hours plus about another 11 hours.
Yeah, it was all day and all night. Next day at about 4 o'clock.
Was there a feeling of hopelessness?
No, not really. I mean, I figured I knew that they knew we was out there, and there'd be somebody come by for some help, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a land-based plane flew over that morning, and then during the day there was a seaplane landed in the rough water and picked up 48 men and left with them. And there was a cargo ship come by, and it picked up some, and we worked all day trying to get to that ship, and we made a little progress, but late that afternoon, it took off. I could see a rope ladder hanging over the side. I could just picture myself going up that ladder, getting on that ship, but it took off, and it didn't. It went off over the horizon, and there was Jim Benrus was his name. He was a cook, and when it went, he went to holler and talk. Said, we die, we never be picked up. And I said, Jim, we don't want to hear no more of that. I said, they know we out here, and the only thing we can do is hang on here in the morning. There'll be somebody out to pick us up. So the next day, when we seen something come up over the horizon about like your finger, he seemed to think they ought to come right straight and pick us up, and we were scattered everywhere. And it took all day to get to us, before that got. But
how many people were on the ship?
It was 1,400, I think.
Mm-hmm. So they were scattered out over. I mean, was it a square mile?
No, it was a long way. We scattered everywhere, before that got.
So, tell us about being rescued. 36 hours in the water. I can't imagine the fatigue.
It was a destroyer, a minesweeper, and a subchaser. Smaller vehicles come out, and then what they picked up, we were transferred over to the destroyer, and that's what we went into the Fiji Islands on the destroyer,
After being hit by a Japanese torpedo, at that time in your life, what was your opinion of the Japanese?
Well, I wasn't too crazy about it.
I've talked to a lot of World War II veterans, and I've had some that have a lot of bitterness, some that had bitterness but laid that down. Again, it's 60-some years after that happened to you. Do you carry or harbor any bitterness towards the Japanese today?
No, because they were in there in their army just like I was in mine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of people, when they had the earthquake and everything, a lot of people felt like they got what they deserved, but the people that had to suffer during that didn't have nothing to do with starting the war.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just a bad situation for that goes. And like I said, they were in service just like I was.
Mm-hmm.
Although they started it to begin with, but that's just the way it was,
Mm-hmm. Now, the group that you were in was called the 1st Fighter Control Squadron.
Right.
And I've had the opportunity to look over your book here, From L.A. to Luzon, with a slight pause off in Fiji. An incredible story about being sunk by a Japanese torpedo. But after you were rescued, tell us a little bit about where you went and what was your duration in the Pacific after that.
After we were hit, we lost everything we had. All I had when I was picked up was a pair of coveralls, my shoes, my life jacket, and I don't remember. I guess I had maybe a helmet. I don't know. But anyway, we went to the Fiji Islands, and then we went from there. Some of them had to stay in the hospital, and then we went from there to Australia, Brisbane, Australia, and we had to stay there till all of our equipment, everything got there from the States. It had to be unpacked, checked out, crated back up, and put on a ship, and then we went from there on up into more dangerous waters than we'd already been in. Went to New Guinea, had all these places that it mentioned there, and well, that's we hit several, and a lot of times there was several of my outfit that was in on the invasion of them, and then we'd always go in later,
Mm-hmm.
But there's always, most of the time on them places it's mentioned there was guys from my outfit that was in on the invasion of it, and then the rest of us would go in later.
What was your responsibility in the squadron? What was your responsibility in the squadron? Your rank?
I was in the motor pool.
Okay.
I was in the motor pool, and I drove a truck, and the outfit, what they would do, it was similar to what our controllers do. Mm-hmm. And they had plotting boards there, could tell when the enemy planes was coming in and all that, you know, and they'd send planes out to rescue people, pilots that were shot down and all.
Now, again, the date was November of '43 when your ship was sunk. So we're about a little less than a year before the end of the war.
Yeah.
So most of your activities on these islands were, I'm assuming, in the spring, late winter and early spring of 1944. Is that right?
Right.
Do you remember where you were when the bomb was dropped?
Yeah.
Tell me where you were at.
I was on Luzon Island. There's a place called Luog, and I mean that's where I was at then. But then we left there though, and we went to we was on Lady Island, and when we landed on one side, and the Japs was landing troops on the other side, on Lady Island, and they dropped paratroopers, and you couldn't tell where they were going to land. And Charles Woodruff here in Moxford, he was on Lady Island the same time I was, and and we left there the 27th of December, 1944, going to Mindoro. And Tokyo Road said that they was going to let the first bunch in on Mindoro Island, but the second bunch they was going to make it rough on them and starve them out. And we were in the second bunch, and that's when the kamikaze pilots, which they was suicide planes, diving into ships and sinking them. And they was after us on that particular trip for 4 days and nights. And they was, I can't begin to tell you how many ships that was knocked out of that convoy. And there was one hit, and a piece of steel flew from it and killed the boy that was on the LST that I was on. Mm-hmm. And it could have been me, same as it was him, but it was.
So it was on the LST that you were on?
Yeah.
And LST is only like, 10 feet by 20?
Well, no, it was bigger. It was bigger than that because that's where you had equipment on it, and you get up at the beach, just let the doors down, you drive right off and everything. Well, over trucks, everything was on them, you know. Mm-hmm. But the guys that was on the guns on there, they knocked out a lot of the planes before it got to us. They were some headed right towards us, and they'd knock them out before they get to us.
Well, talking about death, which is a grim fact of war, I was reading in this article about the number of people that died on the USS San Juan when it sunk. And it identifies in this article written in the Los Angeles Times, April 23rd, 1944, which, by the way, was 15 cents to buy the newspaper. But it identifies that 70 men were lost.
That's what it said.
On that ship.
There was more than that.
Was there?
I mean, I don't know the number, but there was more than that because the hatch, when it caved in, it trapped a lot of them down there, and the steps coming up, some of them, they told me that had probably knocked the steps out where they couldn't get out, you know. Mm-hmm. So,
what is it like, Craig? I'm assuming you lost friends that you knew. What's it like to lose a friend in battle?
Well, I mean, at that particular time, see, I wasn't too close to a lot of them as I was after we got to having reunions, mm-hmm. you know, and after we got overseas and got together. But it was the ones that we lost when that happened. I really, I didn't know them too good, you know. And but then after we got stationed overseas, you got to know them all and everything, you know. And but the bad part is after we started having reunions in 1987, and get to know them, and then lose them. That's the bad part.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a guy I just found out about it about two months ago. From Golden, Mississippi, we went and visit with them, and they was come to see us, stayed a week. And when my wife passed away, they come to her funeral from Golden, Mississippi.
Is that right?
Sure did. And he passed away about 3 months ago. Mm-hmm. And I talked to his daughter. I talked to her, and then she called me here about a week ago.
Well, let's talk about Marie. How long were you married?
53 years.
Where did you meet Marie?
She come to my house. A friend of mine brought her.
Is that right?
Yeah.
When was this? I'm assuming this was after the war.
46.
46.
Yeah.
Was it love at first sight for you?
Almost.
So you all dated, and when were you married?
47.
In 47. The number of times you've come by my office, I was telling your daughter, it's obvious to me that you and Marie had a love affair, that you were a happily married couple. Unfortunately, she passed away
in 2000.
In 2000.
She was the best thing ever happened to me.
Is that right?
Yeah. She really was.
Craig, one of the things that I always like to ask World War II veterans is this video gives you an opportunity to memorialize your thoughts about an important era in American history. What would you want my generation and my children's generation to know about World War II and its effect on American history?
It should be taught in school, and they should know what happened back then, the sacrifice that the civilian population had to go through with. But it wasn't us by ourselves. It was they had to sacrifice a lot. They had to give up a lot because everything was rationed and everything. But it's something that the younger generation should know more about than what they do.
Mm-hmm. And when someone questions the decision that Truman had in dropping the bomb on Japan, you were there. You were in the Pacific when it happened. Was it the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do?
That was the best decision he ever made.
Why is that?
Because it ended the war,
mm-hmm.
and it saved lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Tom Furby, you know, the bombardier he was from here in Marksville, and he was asked a lot of times if he had any regrets about dropping the bomb, and he said none whatsoever, because it did save lives. Because if we'd have had to invade Japan, which they was close to doing it anyway, it would have been more lives lost by that than there was when he dropped that bomb.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, to my opinion, he made the right decision.
We're about to end our conversation, which I want to tell you I enjoy every time I have the opportunity to talk to you. You're definitely a hometown hero. A couple of last questions. When you think about one particular time and moment in your military experience in World War II, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Well, I guess the first thing that comes to mind, how fortunate I was to be able to come through it and still be able to talk about it.
My next question is, do you remember when you came home back to Mocksville, back to Smith Grove, Do you remember that day?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about that.
It was December the 8th, 1945. And I hadn't been home since I went in service. I never did get back home from the time I went in until I got my discharge. But I did get back home December the 8th, right before Christmas.
Mm-hmm. Did you come in on a bus?
No. My friend of mine, we was in service together, James Barnhart. His sister lived across the road from me, and we got discharged at Fort Bragg. And he had a brother named Charlie.
I remember Charlie.
Charlie Barnhart. There was two Charlie Barnharts.
I'm assuming this was the meat locker Charlie?
No, it was the other one.
Okay,
wrong one. He come to Fort Bragg, picked us up, brought us home, and I don't know how he found it out, but I had a brother, which he's gone now, but he met us down at Fork and picked me up and brought me home. I got home about 12 o'clock at night.
Was Mom and Dad asleep?
I don't think so.
So do you remember?
I think they was probably waiting on me.
Do you remember embracing your mama?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Was that a special time?
I believe they cooked something for me that night.
Is that right?
Best I can remember. Yeah, and the biggest thing that one of the biggest things that was surprising to me, it was kids that was 12 and 13-year-old when I left and come back the way they had changed.
Mm-hmm.
It was unbelievable.
Mm.
Couldn't hardly recognize them, But it was good to be home, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for coming by the office today and giving the folks out there in TV land the opportunity to hear from a hometown hero. And I will always be indebted to you as the citizens of this county for the sacrifice that you offered this country back in the 1940s. And I want you to know that it's not forgotten. And Charlie Craig Haynes, thank you so much for everything.
I appreciate it. And I was fortunate enough to get me a job in R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company.
Did you?
I retired from there in 1983, and I've been retired almost longer than I worked. And that was the good part about it. So I consider myself as coming along at a good time.
You've come along at a great time. On behalf of all of us here in Davie County, thank you so much for your service.
I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Okay.